beautiful subscribers. So in this short video, I'm going to be bringing to you an understanding and some talking around the word forgiveness. So being a spiritual person that I am, I have been faced many, many times with the word forgiveness. What does it mean? Do I have to forgive everyone that's ever hurt me? And I spent many, many years contemplating what forgiveness was, because after the things that I had been through, I'd been told quite often that if I just found a way to forgive, I would be happier. And for a period of time, I lived in a false sense of what I thought forgiveness was. I lived in a sense of feeling that I'd forgiven these people. But then as time went on and another layer of healing happened, the anger would come back up again. And I would face it in a different way. And I started to really research forgiveness, feeling forgiveness. What does forgiveness mean? Because forgiveness for some is easier than others. You can forgive some things, but you can't forgive others. And the first concepts I've come up with and found is that forgiveness for one is not about another. Forgiveness is not about you forgiving the person or the act or whatever they've done. Forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is you potentially forgiving yourself for feeling like you have to forgive them. Forgiving yourself for believing that you deserved it. Forgiving yourself for maybe staying longer than you think you should have or was told to. Forgiving yourself for being a child and having no choice. So that was the first level of understanding of forgiveness for me. And then the second layer of understanding of forgiveness was forgiveness doesn't always happen. You don't always have to forgive. If you are looking to forgive the person, you don't always have to reach a level of forgiveness for them. Sometimes you will never ever feel happy at the thought of somebody or what they've done to you. And that does not mean that you won't heal. You know, so many spiritual people say that to heal, you need to learn to forgive. So you contemplate and grapple and think you've forgiven and then realise you haven't. And then it stops your layers of pain, because if you think you've forgiven, you shouldn't feel pain no more. That's not true. So understanding that you don't need to forgive or even think about forgiveness to be able to heal. Another aspect is understanding that forgiveness is a very personal journey. I never believed I would forgive when I was pondering all this forgiveness. I thought, well, I'm somebody that I'm never going to be able to forgive. And as my journey's gone on, I have learnt a way of forgiving. And it is different for everybody. Forgiveness is different for everybody. And actually, forgiveness is a byproduct. I want to say to you that forgiveness is not an aim that anybody should have to aim for. If you have been through trauma, if you've been hurt by another person, forgiving them could actually be counterproductive. And why? So in this next part, I'm going to be talking to you about why forgiveness can actually be a bypass. When people focus on forgiveness, they are focusing on the feelings that they think they need to let go. They're focusing on, right, I'm going to forgive, I'm going to let go, I wish them well, which is easier for some. I'm just going to let them go and I'm going to move on, or I'm going to forgive their actions because they meant well, or I'm going to forgive them because they didn't know any different. Now, you can still do that if that's where you end up. But if you focus on that level of forgiveness and you don't develop the muscle internally of self-understanding, of self-awareness and self-belief, you will continue to invite toxic people in your life. Now, why? If we continually just focus on forgiveness for things that people do, and we just let them go out of our lives or just take a step back and keep forgiving them, we are not growing. We're not growing because what we're not doing is we're not looking at how that pain and action has affected us. But not how has it affected us. Why did I let it happen? Now, this might be a hard one for some people because there are lots of things you didn't let happen. We are victims. Rape, we don't let that happen. Sexual abuse, we don't let that happen. We don't let things happen to us, but in other times we do. In other times, we pick partners that we know are hugely unhealthy and we stay. And when we leave and then we end up trying to find forgiveness, we don't ever reflect on why did we pick them. And people say, well, that's victim blaming. That's victim blaming. Nobody picks somebody that's going to abuse them. But actually we do. We do pick them, and we pick them because there's a part of us that are unhealed. And the only way to not pick them, because, well, in a way you'll say, well, I'm not picking them because I just ended up with them, or they just become my friend, or I just ended up in that situation. Or subconsciously you pick them because, well, you continue to friendship with them, or you continue to relationship with them. So subconsciously you picked them, because when we become aware, when we start to heal, we start to realise we don't have to pick them, because we start to realise red flags, yellow flags, amber flags. Now, there's variations of flags, okay? Not everything is a red flag. But when we start to heal from the things that we have been through previously, such as, I'll give you some instances. Growing up in a home with narcissistic parents, I was denied love. I was denied affection. I had very rigid rules and regulations for how I lived. I was hit regularly. And all that led me feel to be unworthy. I didn't build a healthy sense of connection with my parents. So people in school I would befriend bullied me because I didn't know what a healthy sense of connection was. So I always hung around with people who bullied me and got seriously bullied. Then I met partners who cheated on me. And then I met other partners who hit me and beat me and sexually assaulted me. And I could say, well, I didn't ask for any of that. Well, I didn't, did I? But at some point and somewhere we have to go, okay, I need to heal. Because when we're repetitively making bad choices, or we're repetitively in situations that are unhealthy with unhealthy people, there's something in us that needs to heal. And when we take that responsibility, no matter how hard that is, we can heal, because we can go, there's a part of me that's picking that. And I was picking people like that because of my parents. Not everyone picks people like that because of their parents. Some people pick people like that because they haven't been taught an awareness in childhood of what a red flag looks like. If your parents were overly nurturing but was not communicative and wasn't able to talk to you about the pitfalls of life, because, amazing parents can live in amazing bubbles where sheltered lives are happening, and you grow up and you don't understand the behaviours of others are about them and they're detrimental. And that means that we meet friends and partners and acquaintances and get in arguments with neighbours because there's a sense of vulnerability in us that hasn't been healed. So how do we start to heal that? Now, if you're still in a relationship that you feel hugely vulnerable by, I don't want you to shame yourself. I want you to come out of denial, maybe, because people believe that there's no way out. And there is some rare cases where it's very hard to get out. I hear you. I'm not going to say anything's easy. But what I am going to say, this isn't really aimed at you, because there are support networks you might need to bring in for yourself to facilitate a way forward. This is to people who have left partnerships, people who have left friendships. And they're like, well, I forgive them, Doesn't mean I like them, doesn't mean I agree with them, but I forgive them, because they believe that that's their way of healing. But if they actually allowed themselves to feel the anger and the pain and the hurt, they can go, right, I was vulnerable and I allowed, not allowed, but because of my vulnerability allowed somebody to come into my life who's going to not recognise the love I deserve, who is so unhealed themselves that they want saving. I don't have boundaries. I put them first. I put everyone first. But then I feel really highly triggered and sad when nobody puts me first, because you haven't learned to show people that you have needs too. And if you don't do that, people won't see your needs. So coming away from forgiveness and focusing on what do I need to learn from that relationship, and even friendships. So many times people walk away from friendship and they go, send them love and light, or I send them healing and I forgive them. But did you process what you allowed from them that hurt you? Did you process how they walked all over you so that you can create a new behaviour slowly? And that doesn't have to be a rigid behaviour, such as, well, I'm not going to let anyone in my life hurt me like that again. That's a rigid behaviour, and actually that's a coping mechanism. That's not healthy, and that's going to end up pushing people away. So that's why we need to reflect, because what happens is when people come out of friendships and relationships, they shut down. They go, not fucking having that again. If I'm not having that again, red flag, red flag. And instead of realising that everything's a red flag, they are in protection mode. So starting to heal means starting to look at yourself and reflect on yourself. Do you sometimes feel weak? Which is okay. I did. I felt so weak. I felt so weak, and as if I didn't have a choice in, killing with kindness. That's another one that we say, which leads us to believe that you can change another with kindness. Some people, maybe you can. Some people, maybe you can kill them with kindness and help them, empower them, and have a better friendship and relationship. But if we're talking about narcissists or emotionally abusive people, or people that don't want to recognise their own behaviour, then no, you won't be able to kill them with kindness. You won't be able to be so healed that they're going to learn. Recognising when we do have potentially people in our life, like friends, who gaslight us or emotionally manipulate us, or, we don't always have to walk away from people to recognise, actually, there's some healthy bits in this friendship going on or relationship. So I'm going to start healing them. And how we can do that is start healing how we emotionally face things. How do we allow ourselves to put the needs of others before ourselves? Or sometimes we're so rigid that we don't allow ourselves to meet anyone else's need because we're so tired and sick that we just shut down. So I want you to sit and think about what forgiveness means to you. Have you told yourself that you're never going to forgive, but you've sat in the anger? Because that is just as detrimental as forgiving and walking on. Because quite often what we can do is we can say, I'm never going to forgive them, or how fucking dare they? And we sit in anger, and then we try and get on with life and we sit in anger. Feeling an emotion is important so we can process it. So we can process, validate, and allow it to naturally start to change with an action. If we just sit in our anger, which I did for many, many years, if we just sit there, that's where you will stay. It's almost an acceptance without even realising it's an acceptance. People will say, well, healing is easier said than done. Well, if you look at the whole staircase and you see it going up to heaven and it is about 1,000,000 steps, you'll say, well, I do not want to go up there. That is too far. I'm going to stay here in hell. I don't necessarily believe in heaven and hell, but I'm just using it as like an analogy. Or is it a metaphor? I don't know. You'll sit in hell and you'll start slowly burning and you'll be hot and jumping around. Or you can go, well, just like life, I'm going to take 3 steps and I'm going to sit and rest and have a look around and wave to people that come past me. Maybe have a chat with some people on my way. Then I'm going to take about 10 steps, because today I can take 10 steps. Tomorrow I might feel a bit tired and only take 1. But each time you do that, you're becoming closer to where you want to be. It's the same with healing. If you look at who you want to be and then look at who you are now, you'll think you'll never get there. If I look at who I am now, compared to who I was. And I had this in goal, which you do. I just wanted a healthy sense of who I was. But if I had this exact person in goal, I wouldn't believe I'd get there. Like, how would I get to that? Like, but I had to take each day as it comes, and I had to reflect each stage of my life and understand that each stage was going to bring something different. I remember having a whole period of years in bed, on and off. And when I look back now, I realised, and that's how I ended up healing through it. It's because I had to give into it at the end and realise this is where I am right now. But I'm going to read, or I'm going to start a hobby slowly, and I'm going to start doing slow changes. But that period of time that I just sat in my bed and did nothing, that could have lasted forever. You know, because I wasn't doing any small changes. The small changes that I started to make slowly was I started to meditate. I started to lie there and use the time to watch films that are inspirational and read or meditate. And I spent my first period of time doing that. And then I slowly started to think, right, maybe I can walk to the shop today. Well, I didn't put my makeup on and I didn't do my hair, and I went down in my pyjamas with my coat over me. Because my step wasn't about getting dolled up, doing my hair, looking my best, walking down the shop and pretending I was okay. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to do something small and different. So that meant just putting a coat on and walking down the shop. You know? So I really want you to reflect through this. What does forgiveness mean to you? Because every one of us is faced in our life a stage where we're faced with, how do we move on? How do we forgive? Do we forgive? I can't forgive. We're all faced with that word. And I want you to sit down and I want you to ask yourself why you think you should forgive. And remember, forgiveness is a byproduct, not an end goal. And also, what have you been through to lead you to keep being in those situations? We only need small change to make a collective big change. And I can't stress that enough. We put off those small changes, not realising how wonderful the bigger change feels. It has taken me a year and a half to lose a stone and a half. And people will say, well, actually a stone and £10, so whatever that is. And people say, well, I want to lose it quicker than that. Well, I weren't going to lose it quicker than that, because the minute I started, I stopped. I put so much pressure on myself. I had an expectation. I wanted to be skinny and thin and look like this. But I had to change how I felt about it. I had to change the fact that there was nothing wrong with me. I wanted to lose weight, not because there was something wrong with me, not because I wasn't beautiful the size I was, just because I wanted to feel better in my body again. So I made it a hobby and not a destination. And I have slowly reached it. And there were times I went up and then times I went down, and I didn't connect to what I felt about that. I kept forgiving myself for believing it had to be done quicker. Forgiving myself for believing I needed to look a certain way. Why am I doing this? Am I doing it because I want people to think I'm more attractive because I didn't feel attractive? So reflecting on what I needed to forgive myself for, not feeling good enough. You know, and then when you keep learning about the word forgiveness, forgiveness just isn't for other people, it's for you. Forgive yourself for believing you need to be different. Forgive yourself for believing you're not good enough. Forgive yourself for believing that you need to have your goals accomplished now. Slow down. Forgive yourself for believing you've fucked your life up and life should be different now. If onlys, if onlys. Come into the here and now. I hope this video has gave you some food for thought. Food for thought. I always struggle with that. Food for thought. Food for thought. I'm trying to talk slower because for many, many years, well, my whole life, I've been a fast talker. And it's been one of my lessons that has been raised to me about how my feelings of not being good enough have led me to talk fast my whole life. My feelings that people won't want to listen to me, so I need to get it out as quick as I can, have led me to talk fast. And it feels very uncomfortable while I'm doing this. I feel as if it's not me. But that's the thing with uncomfortable change. I forgave and forgive myself for the fact, we can quite easily say, well, I'm just a fast talker and that's how it is. But it isn't. Just like it's important to accept parts of ourselves. If it empowers other people to change it, or if it empowers you to change it, by speaking slower, I can connect with you better. So therefore, it's something worth exploring, isn't it? Speaking slower. So I hope that you have gained something from this video in some small way. Do comment underneath if there is any questions that you have, or if there's any questions that you want me to do videos on for you. All my love to you.